Coming to you from the headquarters of the hashtag Justice for Number One campaign. This is PoliTreks.
Welcome everyone to episode 31 of PoliTreks. We will be continuing our Engage with Star Trek Picard series with review / analysis / breakdown / fan personing with episode 4, Absolute Candor. I have a wonderful guest host joining me today. I have so many things I want to share about her, which I will hear in a bit. But first, I wanted you to know that we are a proud member of the Trek Geeks Network. They are weird, wonderful, crazy people that let us be weird, wonderful, and crazy, which is the dream team. That's all I could ever ask for. If you ever thought some brown guy with a nerdy passion for Star Trek could have a podcast, where would it go? It would probably go on Trek Geeks. And so we ended up on Trek Geeks. We're so happy to be a part of this network. And we are just as happy to have Fansets as a sponsor for this episode. Later in the episode, you'll hear a discount code for our show, which will give you 15% off on all your pin purchases from Fansets. They actually have pre-orders going right now for the Picard show. They have the visitor badge and another, I believe it's the Clancy badge that she was wearing. They have the pre-orders for those because they know they're going to sell out. They wanted people to get on it as quickly as possible. So later in the show, you could use this code that'll give you 15% off for when you purchase them. Fansets, our pins have character. All right, now on to the episode. Before we get into everything, I first want to introduce my Captain Rios, who will be driving the ship with me, and let me take crazy detours while she deals with all the holograms. It's the delightful Jenn Tift, who I know from Faraday. She plays my trusty number one on the role-playing podcast Faraday. She also does an awesome podcast called Snaptrack. There's so many things she has going on. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's so nice to talk to you, Shashank.
The pleasure always, is all mine.
For Captain Rai.
Oh, you're so nice to say. For those of you who do not know, I play Captain Varun Rai on Faraday, which is a wonderful role-playing tabletop podcast run by Admiral Fliss. And I could not have asked for a better number one in Commander Kiva, who's played by the delightful Jenn Tift. I have done some horrible things to her, which you will hear about when you listen to the
I can't wait for you guys to hear
series.
Some of it.
But she is still sticking around. So one of us is crazy.
Of course.
And one of us is just really, really forgiving. So thank you for
great
joining
captain me, and a great fun that podcast is. So.
Well, so people
here.
can get in touch with us. I will tell them that they can find us at PoliTreks on Twitter. That's PoliTreks on Twitter. I believe we also have a Facebook page, but I am not on Facebook. And there is also a Facebook group called Camp Kitomer, which is all about positive fandom. I cannot vouch for this, even though I'm part of the network. I don't know what crazy stuff they have going on in there. But I believe you can find all these things there. And Jen, where can people find you and all the cool things you do?
Twitter is the best place to find me. I'm at EatAtQuarks on Twitter. And you can find my podcast is the Snaptrack podcast. And that's also at Snaptrack on Twitter. And at Faraday, right? Or it's at Faraday ST Pod, I think.
Yes, you are correct. But yes, people can also find us doing crazy things, going to space and fighting aliens and doing all kinds of nutty stuff.
Yes, captain and first ship. Officer.
Yes.
Great
and
crew.
And a bunch of other crazy people.
And Shashank, our dear Shashank here also plays, I don't want to ruin it in case you want to check it out. He also has a great character he plays in addition to Captain Fry, which is always a joy when he comes up. He's a little bit of a comedic character.
Yes, I think it's good. I think it's great. I think it's the greatest character in any playing.
So does the character.
Yes.
The character himself.
But,
oh, man.
Yes, if you have not, please check
it out.
Yes, check out Faraday. Thanks for that awesome plug. I should have done that, but clearly, I'm glad someone better is on the job today. So
that's what the first officer's for.
Yes, thank you. Before we get into the actual episode, Absolute Candor, please note that this is full of spoilers. So if you have not seen the episode, pause this podcast. Like right now, pause it. I don't care if you're at work. I don't care if you're walking a treadmill. Okay, if you're walking a treadmill, make sure you finish it and your heart rate is down to a respectable level. And then go watch the episode and then come back and listen to us. Or if you're someone who doesn't care about spoilers, hey, do not complain about it. We told you this is full of spoilers, so you have been warned. Anyway, before we get into the actual episode, Jen, I have always been curious about this and I have not gotten an answer, so I thought I'd ask you about this and put you on the spot. Where did Eat at Quarks come from?
Well, I mean, there's no like great story or anything. It's just that that's where I'd be if I was in the Star Trek universe. I'd be playing tango after hours at Quarks, and I like that. I really get a kick out of that scene where Quark decides he's going to advertise and he plays a little jingle. The come to Quarks. Quarks is fun. I always thought that was funny, and just eat at Quarks is just like like eat at Joe's. It's just like an advertisement kind of thing. So. Unplugging Quarks is just basically all it is.
Way to plug a restaurant from the future, which is not really known for its quality or customer service.
Yeah, they don't really mention the food much at Quarks, but I bet like Morn can attest to its the drinks at least.
If / when he speaks, Morn will attest to the quality. Is Deep Space Nine your favorite Trek?
It is. I love them all, every incarnation, but Deep Space Nine's my fave.
Yeah, it's like you say you love all your kids equally, but you have a favorite. Yeah. Just admit it.
No, I have 3 kids, love them equally. I'm not copping to that, but...
And you, dear listener,
Deep Space Nine.
I would like to know who your favorite child is. Please tweet us at PoliTreks and tell us who your favorite child is.
Oh, no,
#justice for your favorite child. Who is your favorite Trek character, Jen?
Of all time, probably Dax in general. Specifically Jadzia Dax, I would say. If I had to pick, if I was, pinned down and had to pick one, I find the character of Dax utterly fascinating. That we've known them through 3 lifetimes, and different yet the same character. And Jadzia is someone who lives life the way I would like to live my life, with just total abandon, go with the flow, enjoy, and try new things, and, just live. She lives every day, she doesn't just exist. And I really like that about her.
Well, that is awesome, Jen. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, now let's get into Star Trek Picard, Episode 4, Absolute Candor.
This is my favorite episode of Picard so far, for sure. I really enjoy the writing style of Michael Chabon, and he has a way like of getting deep into different layers. Like everything that he writes, every line he writes has layers and layers and layers, and I love that. Directed by Jonathan Frakes. I love the direction here too. I love the world building in this episode. Romulans are my favorite my favorite alien race are the Romulans. So of course I'm, just loving Picard. But this episode in particular, I love what they did with it. And then, of course, how can I not love the end? I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but we're, getting to see our beloved Seven again. So yeah, this episode is my favorite out of the 4 so far.
All right, that is good to hear. For me, I still like the pilot.
Yeah,
but
yeah, there was something about seeing Picard back after all those years, right?
Well, and also my biggest reason for loving the pilot is there is number 1 in the pilot, and we do not see number 1 again in any of the other 3 episodes so far. Hashtag justice for number 1. Hashtag what the hell, where is my pitbull?
He's there. He's enjoying harvest season with Laris and the other guy.
Jaban,
thank you.
You would not have had that much trouble, Jen, if you had listened to me and then gone and bought the Star Trek Picard Countdown comics.
No.
Because they are all about Jaban and Laris.
Oh, awesome.
This should tell you, dear listeners, that my friends do not listen to me. And
I have a rule that I don't do any tie-in comics or books until after the series is done, because I want to see on screen the story as they want us, to know on screen, and then I'll go back and supplement with all the good stuff after that. I don't want to get any bonus things. I just want to know what they want to tell us on screen. But I have heard that those comics are excellent.
Yes, they're really good. And
are they?
Personally, I think they enhance the viewing experience of the show. But hey,
personal preference. Yeah.
Yes, to each their own. All I'm saying is number 1. Where is number 1?
Where is number 1?
Yes, it's a big ship. The La Serena is a big ship.
That's true. We could have taken him with him.
They reconstructed Picard's study. Could they just not have had the dog? Just everything is better with a dog.
But then if they took the dog, I'd have to worry about the dog when they go through all these dangerous situations. And I don't want to have to worry about him. I just want to picture him, lying on the patio, enjoying the sun, back at Chateau Picard, where he's safe.
Or it could be like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Brad Pitt's Pitbull, where Picard could just be directing number 1 to take down some crazy Romulan terrorists,
Oh, that's true.
He would have an addition. Yeah. It would be full. He could go full John Wick. Full Jean-Luc Wick. But
no.
Anyway,
keep him safe.
Hashtag bring back number 1.
I love number 1. Yeah. Well, I want to see number 1 and our Romulan friends at the chateau again. Hopefully, we will. Meanwhile, back at the chateau kind of scenes.
Just cut back to they're doing an hour-long show about everything going on in space.
Yeah.
I wish they would do like a 5-minute beginning or an ending snippet, like a short story of, what number 1 did today? He caught a squirrel and then he let it go. And that's
he had a great day. He was a good boy.
Yes. Show me that. At least just give me that.
They gave him lots of treats. Yeah. Yeah, same.
And anyway, I hope people listen to me and give us that, but I don't think anyone's listening. Anyway, getting back to the episode itself. So I felt like this was the closest to the traditional TNG episode, because even if you haven't seen anything up till now, you kind of can start catching up if you've only seen episode 4. Because it's almost like a short story about Picard and the Kovat Millet and Vashti. And even though it eventually ties into the larger story, I felt like it was a little one-shot story that fits right in as, if you've not seen the show yet, you can start here. And also not a whole lot goes on with the artifact in this episode. Right. That's not to say it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that's the episode's focus is Elnor and Picard. So I felt like it was the closest to a traditional one episode that's a story by itself.
Yeah, we got the Elnor origin story episode is basically what it was. And I wonder if we'll see flashbacks of the other characters too, to try to get a little bit of background on them. But yeah, so who knows what it's going to be from here on in. Maybe it will be a little bit more episodic like that. I mean, there's obviously, a mission they're on. That's a season length mission, but it sounds like they can, block it off into chunks and maybe have it more like the first 3 episodes were obviously just one arc of them getting on the road, but we don't really know what it's going to be from here on out, what they're going to do.
And all the previews and stuff that they shared were from the first 3 episodes too, which is smart. And so now nobody knows what's going to happen except the people who made the show.
Exciting.
We here at PoliTreks had some crazy theories about the backstory of Jurati. I went so far to say that she's a skin-grafted Maddox.
Ooh. Interesting.
Yes, Aly was not on board with that theory. And
yeah, and people have been saying she's a spy for O and everything, and I don't know what to think of her. But,
for Rios, I feel like I'll share some more about Rios and his backstory, but I feel like they're saving who his captain was because it's somebody we know, and we'll find out.
I hope not.
And especially with the Klingon opera reference in this episode. And I've thoughts about Rios, and there is
you have thoughts about everything.
There is a significant amount of backstory on Raffi Musiker, which you can find out if you read Star Trek Picard Countdown, the comic book series that shows some of their origin. But again, to each their own, right?
I'm sure there'll be some on screen. I'm sure some of that will make it on screen.
Yeah, we saw part of it in episode 3, right? Which is where they're in their uniforms.
Oh yeah, when she got fired. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you watch the Ready Room?
Yes.
Because I really like it too. Mm-hmm. But they mentioned that there would be more backstory about the Raffi and Rios friendship, like how they met and became friends and everything. So I know we'll see a little bit more of that.
Have you been listening to the official Star Trek Picard podcast?
I have. Yeah. I you know what? I like I prefer the Ready Room. But the official Picard podcast is nice. I'm kind of meh on the interviewers, but the interviews obviously have been great because they have everybody, and this week's was great because it was so great to hear from Jerry Ryan and how she felt about coming back and everything. And that was really, I was grinning ear to ear listening to her talk about becoming 7 again. So, and I can't wait for next week's episode to hopefully learn more about where she's been and what's going on. Yay. Was any of that in the comics? Any 7 stuff? No,
but I don't know why they're not giving me a 7 comic. There is a really good 7 comic written by Brannon Braga. It's called Star Trek The Hive, and it kind of shows Jerry Ryan's 7 of 9 and Jean-Luc Picard together. They're trying to solve a mystery. That's all I'll say. But it's a really good comic by Brannon Braga. Again, if people want it, they should read it. There you go. Did I pass my comics test, Jenn? Smarty pants.
Me, no. Yeah, you're the comic expert here. Oh. I would defer to you.
Anyway, so with this episode, we start in Vashti, which is in the Beta Quadrant, and we find out that it's where some of the Romulans were relocated to, and it's 14 years ago. Picard lands on the planet. And he's welcomed. Everybody's so happy to see him. They're all Romulans. And then we see that some of the people that are living here are called the Quoth Millet. Did I get that right?
Yeah, Quoth Millet. Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
It's they're female warrior nuns, which I'll tell you some more about later. But here's the first time we see Elnor. And we see his intro almost like the Aladdin street rat scene where he steals an apple and runs away. And then we see him interacting with Picard, and we get some more exposition. We find out that while he's there, he talks to them about a mission, about helping them relocate. And he brings Elnor. You can see almost like a father-son relationship between Elnor and Picard. Did you get the name of the lady he's talking to?
Oh, geez. Let me look it up. I can look it up. She was delightful. She was, she gave me, Kai Opaka vibes.
Yes, Kai Opaka is the first Kai we meet, right?
Yes.
The one who passes away on the planet?
Yes, Zani.
And she is...
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
No. Yeah, she just radiates this serene wisdom, the same way Kai Opaka used to. And she's wonderful. And her and Picard are equals. I mean, Picard 2-7 is an equal, but they're obviously like they're intellectual equals. They're equals in the sense of they're both leaders, and I enjoy their conversations together, especially because she does have the absolute candor with him, and you can tell he does with her too. And I really, really hope that she's just not a one and done. I would love to see her again.
What was particularly interesting to me is I'm glad you said Kai Opaka, because she is even dressed the way Kai Opaka would be, except they're all dressed in black.
Right.
And
the Star Trek religious order uniform.
I feel like that's the all you need to do is change the hat to an Enterprise-shaped hat, and then you get Guinan. Right. It's the same across different spec. Come on, Star Trek. No, I'm kidding. You guys are doing great. I'm so proud of all of you. Good job, Star Trek. But no, that was a good scene. What did you think of the scene in general? What do you think of the start of the relationship between Picard and Elnor that we saw? And how did it, when it ended, what did you think? Just give us your thoughts.
My thoughts? Well, I mean, the scenes with Picard and baby Elnor are just delightful. It's really great to see Picard interacting with him if you think about his other times interacting with children. He says he hates children, blah blah blah, but he steps up when he needs to, but but begrudgingly almost. The only time you've ever seen him act like this with a child is the way he acted with his nephew Renee. With delight on his face. Picard's enjoying reading this story with Elnor just as much as Elnor is. He's enjoying the sword fight just as much as Elnor is. You can see it on his face. And that's growth for Picard, but it's also just, it also made me a little sad because it reminded me of Renee and, and how Picard's never had a son. This is like the closest, I mean, Inner Light, his life in Inner Light. I mean, I guess you have to count that. So he's experienced being a father there, but within his life as Picard, this is like the closest he's gotten. And I just seeing the joy on his face was really nice. And then of course, then he gets the call of what happened, and that's just tragic.
We keep going back to that scene and where everybody is during that scene. Mm-hmm. If you look at episode 1, 2, 3, 4, they all have flashbacks. Right. All episodes start with that flashback.
Yeah.
And each of them has a different point of view or where people are in different places. I thought that was pretty interesting. When Picard lands on that planet, Vashti, I really like the soundtrack, the guitar, the smooth. It's almost like a Western soundtrack, but if the Western was a happy, nice, sweet, playful Western. And I don't know if you noticed, but the social club, which we find out later on what it becomes, but here it's a nice, happy place where everybody's playing and they play some kind of a card game. Do you know what that is?
Oh, no, I didn't notice. Are they playing with those tarot cards?
Yes, the cards look similar to the Pak Meet, which is what they were called in the previous episode, I think, when we see Ramda playing with them. Or she's not playing with them, she's doing the tarot. Right. But it's the same shape, the same size. So I'm not entirely sure if it's the same card system or if it's a different, or maybe just all the Romulan cards are triangles. All I'm saying is QMX, if you're listening, please make that card so I can buy it. Because that's what I need. I need to know what those cards are. Make them.
I would like a set of Romulan tarot cards too, honestly.
Yes. Thank you for jumping in with me on this.
Yes.
Jenn. Should we start a petition on change.org This is a really important cost to the both of us.
Yeah, I mean, even just just the little bit of artwork we've seen on it is really beautiful. They really put something into this, and it's I definitely would purchase a set.
Yeah, clearly work has gone into it. We nerds will pay $20 for it.
Right.
We're ready. We don't need to eat food all the time.
Take our money.
Yes. Just make it, Cure Max.
We're going to buy Star Trek stuff. Just make it and we will buy it. And we are easy marks.
You just have to make them and put them out and buy them. So one of the things I really liked was that Elnor walks up to Picard and he says, "Hey, what did you bring me?" And Picard brings the Three Musketeers. And if you know a whole lot about the Three Musketeers, you'll know that it's a book about swashbuckling. The people in it, they fight with swords and stuff. And I like that eventually Elnor will grow up and have a sword as a weapon, which I wonder how much the Three Musketeers has to do with it. But we also see a scene in which Picard and Elnor are fencing. Because I think it's fencing because they say on guard. I could be wrong. But they're playing with sticks and then that's when he gets the call. Anyway, so that scene overall it's a beautiful setup. I like the background of where Vasti is, and before leaving he says, your mission has to continue. We will do everything we can. But of course we find out that that is not the case because we've seen what happens in the next 3 episodes. So now we jump to the present day La Serena, where Rios and Jurati are having a conversation. I think that's going to be a couple situation. I don't know. It's just a...
Don't know.
We're going to find out. But I think that's...
I don't know where they're going to go with that. That's one possibility. I also... Just the way that Rios marveled at Seven's piloting skills. I wonder if he's going to start crushing on Seven, too, is a possibility. I don't know. I'll ship him with anyone.
I feel like he's shipping himself with all those holograms.
Oh, I adore the holograms. I adore that.
All I'm saying is, if you can have a bunch of holograms look like anyone, and you're making them all look like yourself with different accents, I don't know, and that's fine. Everybody's into...
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get backstory on that, of how that happened, but I also kind of feel like it just says something about his psychology where he is, too. Because he's obviously hurting, he's obviously in pain from, the past, and we don't know exactly what happened, but he's obviously going through some kind of grieving process and depression. And I don't know, geez, maybe just being able to speak to the different aspects of yourself, you know what I mean, is kind of a useful thing. Maybe that's his form of therapy. Who know? I don't know. Or maybe we'll find out that that's just what the settings default to the captain. I don't know. And he just didn't change it. Who knows? Because he does have that funny line. He's like, "Oh, I hate that. Can I swear on here?"
Yeah.
I hate that hospitality hologram. But I thought that was a funny line.
Yeah, but you're right. It's I don't know if I would go as far as saying like that's his way of dealing. You know what it is, Jen? It is his tragic sense of life. That's true. Mm-hmm. And now that book that he keeps reading, that I have no background on. I have to read that. I'm adding that to my list of books to read because that's interesting. I want to know more about him. Why he keeps that book around all the time. Well, it's not a classic philosophy text by any means, but it's a very unique philosophy text in that it's supposed to be a philosophical treatise on living your life with the understanding that we're all going to die at some point, which is not that different from what Nietzsche said, but it's just a very interesting way of saying, hey, you know what? The death is inevitable. Like, all of this is essentially useless because we're all going to die. Again, which goes into some Buddhism. But it's a good... If you have some time, it's free on the internet. You can find and read it. It's an interesting book. There are some interesting things in it. And, well, going back to what was going on, what I found really intriguing is if you connect the pieces from the previous episode where he talks about his captain being like the captain's head being splattered all over a bulkhead to now his captain listening to Klingon opera, I feel like they're laying pieces or sowing the seeds for who we find out that captain is going to be. When he says Klingon opera, who do you think that is? Is he talking about Worf?
Well, we know Worf's okay because Worf got a name drop last week. But Picard dropped, they name dropped, what was it, Riker, Picard, and, Riker, Worf, and LaForge.
Yeah, but we've not seen them. And we also don't know.
He's not dead.
Yes. We also don't know that.
He said, why don't you call Worf or Riker or LaForge?
Clearly, every time you watch these episodes, you find out that Picard has not kept in touch with any of the people from his past.
Right.
So I feel like he's just making an assumption.
So I don't know.
And again,
well, Worf's past captain stage too. He would be, well, what was it? I mean, like ambassador to Kronos. He's not going to go back to being a starship captain. But so let's go with that. So what Klingons are of captain age? The only one that comes to mind is, what is Paris and B'Elanna's daughter doing? She's about that age now, right? Mm-hmm. It's not Mara. It's Mira, right? Something like that. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's got to be some reason that it's Klingon. But I mean, maybe his captain was a Klingon. Maybe it's someone we know. Maybe it's someone we don't know. But
like we know from Discovery that humans love all kinds of opera. Like Stamets loves Caecilian opera. Right. And so we don't know. I feel like they're just laying the groundwork for who we find out it's eventually going to be.
Yeah.
But
no, that's a good catch.
From that scene, we go to Picard's study, which has been reconstructed in, I'm assuming, like their holodeck. Or I guess quarters have just gotten to a point where you can make them look like your study. We don't know that yet. But here, we see Picard interacting with a hospitality hologram while Rios walks in, and then Rios cusses at him as soon as the hospitality hologram disappears. This is something that is, again, connection for me with Blade Runner and Battlestar Galactica, two shows in which there are beings that are artificial, if you can call them that, and people openly say terrible things about them. And even in episode 2, people just make fun of F8. They openly mock him. And before he does
to
what
his
he
face.
Does. Yeah. And then they wonder, like he has no feelings, like it doesn't matter. And say what you will about TNG, nobody ever did that to Data. Right. And if they did, people talked about it and they said, hey, you can't do that to Data. So it tells you a little bit about where people have gotten to. But just what did you think about that scene? And I know other people jump in, like Rafi comes in and then Jurati comes in and they talk about them going to him changing plans and going to Vashti. But what do you think about that scene in general? And tell me, what do you think so far about all the cussing in Picard? Do you like it? Are you indifferent? Do you not like it?
The swearing does not bother me at all. I mean, I think the only reason they weren't swearing before was because they couldn't, in all the other Star Treks, because of the rules. So I don't know. It's kind of it's a little bit more realistic to how people talk. I think. I don't think that's going to change. When there's swearing all over Shakespeare's plays. People were swearing back then. People are swearing now. People will be swearing in 2399. So that doesn't bother me at all. That's how I feel about that. But this scene, I mean, we learn a lot of information in this scene. This is a big scene. I like the idea of them recreating the study. So we still kind of have a little bit of the chateau with us when we're in space. We're not just like in spaceship, compartments. So I thought that was a nice idea. We learn that we learn about the Kawat Malat. Here we learned that there's a race of Romulan warrior nuns and that they're enemies of the Tal Shiar, which makes them pretty cool. Before we even see them, we know these people are going to be badass. But we also learn, they talk about the Romulan rebirth movement, which I assume we'll have to learn more about in subsequent episodes. But that's interesting too, because it sounds like there's just a lot of different factions of, Romulans, which makes sense. I mean, their culture's been fractured, a million ways, after something like this happens, which makes sense, but it's interesting. Yeah. I don't know. I like the little moment in this scene with Raffi and Picard. They have a little heart to heart. You can imagine that they had those kinds of talks when she was his first officer. You see them like really bouncing off each other pretty well, and she's like, well, remember what we used to say, one impossible thing at a time, which is a great line. And then, he says, well, I'm to her, we have to stop here. I may never pass this way again. And then she's like, okay, I know Picard. This is what I'm not going to be able to change your mind. You can see that they've probably been had this similar conversation about other things before in the past. So it was nice seeing them being familiar with each other too. This is a great scene.
Well, since we do talk about the Quoth Millet a bit, I want to tell you about I'm going to do my best to pronounce this right, but I will fail. The Ona Bugisha. So ONNA -BUGEISHA or Bugesha. I'm sure people are familiar with what geishas are, but for those of you who don't, the Ona Bugesha are female warrior nuns that used to live during the times of the samurai. And they used to assist or complement the male samurais by helping them during a fight. And they used to be the women that used to essentially maintain the houses or the institutions that the samurais trained in. And in return for all that, not only would they get the same resources as a samurai, they would also get the training that the samurais would get. And when the samurais would go off into various places in feudal Japan, the women would in turn stay in these places and be responsible for guarding them and taking care of them. And so, by the way, I was really impressed that when I typed female warrior nuns on the internet, this showed up. I was like, this is awesome. I don't know why I don't know about this, but that was pretty cool to me. I was really impressed. I should do more research on the Ona Bugesha. And what I found intriguing about what they were talking, one of the things that name drop is a Romulan rebirth movement.
Yes.
They say that on Vashti, that is what is happening. Now, you're familiar with the Palestine-Israel war, right?
Right.
And one of the fallout of that is the Palestinian people essentially do not have a home. And people keep saying, we'll find a way to get you a home. But the truth is that the Israelis have control over the land of the Palestinians right now, or the Palestinians. And the Palestinians are a group of displaced people who are having trouble finding a place to set their roots in. And while it's kind of not exactly the same because the Quoth Millet do have a place, they're surrounded by people who are not truly okay with what they're doing. Because Absolute Candor, as you find out, is not the Romulan way or the Tal Shiar way. And clearly there are some bad actors on this planet. So I thought that was a good connection to the displaced Palestinians. And I feel like more and more Picard goes down and talks to these people. I'll talk more about this later, but the show is essentially becoming, in part for me, an apology for the way the West is becoming today. Like, if you think about Picard as who he is, he represents Starfleet. And Starfleet, to me, has always been the US government. Mm-hmm. And by him resigning from it and saying, I do not accept the ways of Starfleet, with where the US government is today, and how it has become so different from what it was back in the 80s and 90s, I feel like the show is becoming more and more, in part to me, an expression for the new West, or whatever the West is today. And it's almost like an apology or a way of talking about what the West has become through this man who once used to be the person to represent Starfleet, but today does not want anything to do with it. And clearly they don't want anything to do with him. But all that to say, I found the Romulan rebirth movement interesting.
I was just going to say, I mean, but what you're saying, it's about time. It's not like in the 80s and 90s, America was great. Was a good guy. That we might have thought we were, quote unquote, the good guys, and that certainly was, the previous Star Treks, Starfleet is right. Starfleet is, the way. And that was, just basically ignoring all the stuff we were doing back then and back now. So it's long overdue. And I think it's really good that Picard is finally examining some of that. And I love the way that they're really, really honing in on the issues that are affecting us today. It's the perfect show for this moment in time, I think. But yeah, and I'm also really interested in learning more about the Romulan rebirth movement, because that's going to come up and yeah, and it's interesting to see that how the Romulan society is split up into these factions, and and of course they are.
Yeah. It's almost like what the Middle East used to be 50 years ago is completely different from what it is today. Right. And it's essentially like a supernova went in there and completely split their people apart. Anyway, in this scene, we also find out, yes, Picard says, I may never pass through this place again. And anytime you can play the death card, you win. I feel like that.
I've got a syndrome. You do what let me have this.
I have a thing in my parietal lobe. Right. Crusher warned me about it in all good things, but I didn't listen. I did my thing, and here I am. Look at me.
Right. Oh man. Yeah.
From here we go to
and it makes sense. I think that's the whole thing of Picard in general is him trying to clear his slate,
yes,
of all the things that he wish he would have done differently in these last 14 years. He's trying to clear that off so he can, and that's one of the things he's felt shame about, and what did we say her name was? Zari? I gotta learn these names. Yeah, Zanny. That's the one thing Zanny even says to him. She's like, you feel shame when you look at Elnor. And he does. He feels that, and that's one of the things he's gonna rectify, throughout the course of the show.
True. I hope so, certainly.
Yeah.
And now we go to the artifact where we see Soji in her room looking at a hollow presentation of Ramda. I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, is she green in this?
Who green?
Ramda? Is she green? Like her?
Were they scanning? It looked like they were scanning her.
Well, before that scene, there is a scene where she sits and looks at a video of Ramda.
On the video?
Yeah, and in that video, Ramda talks about the gun madan, or however white people pronounce it. I'm sorry for saying that. But,
the destroyer.
Yes. She talks about gun madan, which is their day of annihilation. Okay. And she says that on this day, the destroyer will arrive. And clearly she has called Soji the destroyer. So we know it's Soji looking at what once used to be Ramda, a respected professor or something to that effect. And she's talking about the destroyer. Of course, the destroyer, I don't know how many people know, but in my mythology, in Hindu mythology, Shiva is called the destroyer. That's his other name. He's often called the destroyer. And of course, in Christian mythology, there is the rapture and Jesus coming down and splitting people into two. And there's just a lot of Judgment Day apocalypse related myths. But it's interesting that for a people that are so far away and wouldn't have had nowhere to talk to or interact with in any way, people of Earth, that they also have a similar myth. Unless I do go by the TNG lore, in which I believe the episode is The Race, in which you find out that everybody came from
the same. Yeah.
And I wonder if that's what they're trying to tell us is it's just these myths were always there. They just went into different places and became different things.
Well, yeah. I mean, that happens on Earth. I mean, cultures that haven't ever, connected come up with similar myths just because it's, because it makes sense. It makes sense to think that, like, to make up stories about this, the sun and the, and the earth and they come up with similar stories because they reflect the people, who the people are. And I mean, Romulans aren't really going to be that different from us in that sense, in the sense of basic needs and basic, curiosity. And I kind of like that. I kind of like that they have a mythology, but that it kind of feels like it could be an Earth mythology too. I kind of like that. I find I find the mythology interesting, or the Romulans.
And I wonder how all of it will connect. And
yeah.
I'm curious to see how it will connect to all the hate that the Romulans have for androids.
Right. Oh,
And
yeah.
since-
I mean, especially if I guess she somehow picked up on the fact that Soji was an android maybe?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she thought she was the destroyer? Or I don't, does she have some kind of ability with that?
Mm-hmm.
Or what that means? But yeah, it's definitely all going to tie together. But I guess that means the, oh geez, what's the secret Romulan? Not Tal Shahar. What are they called?
Jacques.
Thank you. I gotta get all these new terms straight. It's harder for me now than when I was young, and I could just memorize all this stuff.
I thought the Romulans were your favorite race.
The shot. I've only known the Zhat Vash for 3 weeks. Get me some slack. But yeah, but the Zhat Vash is just sounds less like a secret intelligence agency, more of just like a cult. Like they're obviously like a death cult, and this is part of them is trying to stop the destroyer. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so I guess somewhere along the line, the destroyer became synonymous with synthetic people. Or I won't learn more about it, but it's interesting. It's really interesting.
Yeah, well, for sure. We will definitely find out more. Now, from here we go to the La Serena looking down at the planet Vasti and their perimeter. But before we do that, do you remember how during the Picard study scene, they cut to showing the ship going in warp? It's a tiny scene, but it's like they showed the La Serena going in warp right after Rio says he hates the hologram.
Oh.
The way it goes, I think I should find a way to make a GIF of that warp, and then the warp of the Enterprise and beyond. It looks exactly the same.
Oh, I love it.
The way they go is like, is that a Beyond reference? Way to go, you guys. Anyway, so they get to Vashti, and on Vashti you find out that they have a pretty secure perimeter. It's just a bunch of drones that is guarding those people. Now, I was a little unclear on this, but Picard says here that they arrive here and he finds the perimeter, and he says, hey, tell them I'm here. Hopefully they'll let me in. And they say, that's the first thing we tried. Yeah. That did not work out. And then he lands. So what changed? How did he end up there? What did they do?
Rios said something about making a little cash payment. Mm-hmm. So I assume that they bribed their way in.
Yes.
That's what I assumed happened.
Yes, that's
but
what I thought too.
But they don't specify. Yeah.
Yeah. And in a post-scarcity society, it's good to know that there are some people who still know that money talks. Way to go, guys.
On a planet like this, that doesn't. It seems a lawless planet. There's got to be some kind of currency.
So, when they land on the planet, they cut to some of the Romulans that are living today, and you can clearly tell it's a different time from when they were back then. Did you notice the patch on their arms?
Yeah, I think that's the Romulan rebirth movement.
Yes, that's what I think too. I think that's the symbol of the Romulan rebirth movement. Interestingly, I have not seen that anywhere in the Koath Millet, so I don't know if they are associated.
No, I wouldn't think so. Say it again. Kawat Malat, good. Romulan rebirth movement, bad. That's just the impression I got, based on what we know so far.
Yep, I'm glad I'm not alone on that.
Yeah.
Now, so from here, Picard, of course, he walks by the restaurant, which we'll see later, the social club, and he keeps saying he's saying Jolantrou to everyone, which is a Romulan greeting. And he ends up at the Koath Millet house, and there he does they have a funny little scene, and then now Elnor shows up. But Elnor has clearly aged. He's gone from a street rat Romulan boy to making all the other men really jealous and shameful of her appearance. Handsome elf man with
big
skin.
strapping Romulan swordman.
Between Elnor and Rios and Hugh,
oh my!
It's like why should I watch
delightful.
this? I should just be at the gym all the time. Why am I watching anything? I should just.
I had to live through 40 years of cat suits, so you can deal with some hotties in Picard.
That is true. I can only imagine what it's like when 7 of 9 is on screen.
Right. Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know where to put my face. Yeah. But yes,
they're all
good
gorgeous.
Point.
Literally everyone in the show, and every show is gorgeous. That's just part of the requirements for being on TV. So
yes,
don't worry about it. Don't compare. It's not a competition. It's not, that's just how it is.
Well, it is a competition to me because there is only one character that is the most gorgeous on Star Trek Picard, and that's number one. Hashtag justice for number one. Hashtag where is number one?
We can all agree on that.
So from here we
I've been calling my dog number one. Like when I take her out now, it's like number one, come along.
And since we brought up number one, I feel like this is a good time to not only plug fan sets because they've made a couple of number one pins. Have you seen them yet?
I have one.
And they've also made this dog tag.
Yeah, I have the dog tag. Yeah.
I need to buy the dog tag. I've not bought it yet. But here's my incentive, and the incentive for all our listeners is if you go to fansets.com and after you've done your purchase, if you go to the cart, there's a place to enter a promo code. And believe it or not, this crazy weird show has its own promo code. Yeah. And it's the most subtle, the most undecipherable code. It'll take you better sit down and write this down, is all I'm saying, because there's no way you can remember it. It's PoliTreks. PoliTreks. Just enter PoliTreks in the promo code and you'll get 15% off. And trust me, right sweet. After this show, I'm buying that number one dog tag for my puppy Zord.
Do it.
But anyway, back to the episode.
And I don't know if they have them anymore. I'm sorry, back to you.
No.
But I don't know if they have them anymore, but I really I love they do the Christmas pin every year now, which I love. I love collecting Christmas stuff. Star Trek Christmas stuff so that's my jam. But it's number one with a Santa hat.
Santa hat, yes.
Which is it's just adorable. I love it. I don't know if they still have them.
I
bet
they
do pick one up. They're adorable.
I will make sure I get that.
So,
right. Yeah. And again, this is not on brand, but I really like, they recently released a Swamp Thing pin. You know who Swamp Thing is?
Oh, yeah.
It's such a good pin. That's
now,
clear.
Now, which Swamp Thing is it based on? Is it big? Like the comic? Like, doesn't he looks different in everything?
Yes.
Right?
It's the comic Swamp Thing, yeah.
The guy, I like I love the 90s Swamp Thing TV show they did. I really got a kick out of that one. Like, on like UPN in the 90s or whatever it was. I really like that version of Swamp Thing. It's ridiculous.
I don't know if they've done that pin yet, but they're doing pins all the time. So I'm sure
they do, yeah.
It's only a matter of time. So anyway, we go back to where Elnor is, and we see a young Elnor, and he has a sword, and he looks really cool. Is this the closest thing to an elf we've gotten in Star Trek?
Maybe the who are the people that think Picard is a god? The Proto-Vulcans. It begins with an M, doesn't it? Let me look that up. It's like who watches the Watchers? Or hold on. They look
clearly. I don't remember, so I'm not doing a very good job.
Hold on, I'm gonna look. Do you mind if I take a minute to look it up?
That's fine. Meanwhile, I'll just keep talking because I think Elnor is a very cool character. It's interesting that again the connection from the geisha that I was talking about earlier to the samurais. Elnor is essentially a Ronin. For those of you who are not familiar, Ronin in Japanese samurai lore is a swordsman without a master. And as Elnor's a boy who grew up around female warrior nuns who are very particular about the femininity of their group. He is someone who he has gotten all the training that those warrior nuns have gotten, but he is not anyone who belongs to a certain kind of, I don't know if there is a male samurai Romulan guy, but do you have the answer?
Yeah, they're the Mintakans. If you look up the Mintakans, they look like elves. And remember, Riker dresses up like one, and so it's like Elf Riker. And
I remember that now.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he needs a quest. He's got all this talent and an ability, and he doesn't have anywhere to channel it to. He needs a quest.
And we find out more about Elnor a little bit later, but we essentially see him. There's like an introduction scene where he shows up and they start talking, but then we jump back to the artifact where...
Meanwhile, back on the board cube.
Absent from this episode is the lovely Hugh. Yeah. I don't know where Hugh is, but bring back Hugh.
Yes.
#Hugh. #justice for Hugh. # we need more Hugh.
Well, I can't wait for you and Picard to come face to face.
Oh, if there is I've said this before, but if there is a scene in which Picard talks to Seven and Hugh at the same time, I will flatline.
An export convention.
It would be perfect. And
they need that. They need all three of them. I think it would be good. Like therapy.
Each of them has a very specific perspective on the board.
Right.
But here we see the scene you're talking about, which is Soji examining Ramda, who's being worked on by a drone, and then Narek shows up. Yeah. It's weird how Narek just shows up.
He does.
I'm still trying to figure out what the thing in his ear is. Aly brought it up in one of our episodes, but is it a hearing aid or is it something that helps him
in his ear? I don't think I noticed that.
Oh, you should watch. It's in his right ear. It's essentially like a little wireless earbud.
Oh,
but it's pretty intriguing. But so Narek shows up here, and then they have a little bit of a chat about Ramda. Turns out he knows who Ramda is, and later on they sit at a restaurant, cafeteria, canteen type place where they start talking to each other, and Narek starts talking.
Some Romulan ale.
I'm sure that's what it is. And then
it's blue. It's got to be.
Yeah. And here, Narek and Soji are talking to each other, and Narek is slowly dropping in the idea about where she's from.
Yeah.
And we'll talk more about that here in a bit. But in this conversation, what I thought was particularly interesting is that Soji is beginning to suspect Narek too. And she keeps saying the same things that we are. She's like, you're in the right place at the right time all the time. You seem to know all these things. And then she asks him, are you the Tal Shiar? And he says, no. And then she says, well, if you are the Tal Shiar, would that be your answer? And he would say, yes. So, is Narek Jatvash? Is that the understanding?
I mean, the other Jatvash thinks he's Jatvash. Is he a double agent for the Tal Shiar? Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
because his quote unquote sister thinks he works for the Jatvash.
That is such a weird relationship.
Well, then you wonder if it's just like, I mean, do they, how like people in a cult might call each other brothers and sisters? Like maybe that's what they're doing. They're not actually brother and sister.
I don't see any facial similarities in them for any way to be brother and sister. But yes, I know what you're getting at for sure.
But yeah, I mean, there's obviously something mysterious going on with him. I don't know if it's that he's a double agent or that he's just, or if we're just meant to think that he's going to, have second thoughts and fall in love with Soji and decide to help her instead of the Javash. I don't know where they're going with that.
I think Narek will turn to the good side, and then Jurati will turn to the bad side.
I definitely think Narek might turn to the good side. I'm not sure about Jurati. I don't know. Jurati's interesting because she definitely has an edge to her. Like she seems at first like she's just like a goody two shoes scientist, kind of person, but she's pretty, in this episode in particular, she's pretty outspoken and pretty snarky, which is, and I don't know if that's just her being comfortable, or you could say that's her trying to squeeze her way in to try to be a spy, or I don't know. But if you think about it from her character of her being a cyberneticist, she's going to be on the side. You would think that would put her on the side of the androids, the side of Bruce Maddox. So I guess you could say if Bruce Maddox is bad, turns out to be bad, she'll turn out to be bad. Or if Bruce Maddox is good, maybe she'll turn out to be good. I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting.
I also don't know if they'll do the Star Wars thing and say, oh, guess who Bruce Maddox's daughter is? Dr. Jurati.
I don't need any more of that.
What are you talking about? Stop
Let's
it.
not even go there, please. We don't need that.
All right. Well, what I will give you is the Borg ritual. Did you? Okay, that's a scene that completely lost me.
Oh,
I don't
he's
know
just
what
trying
that
to be
was.
cute. He's just trying to be cute.
So that's not really a Borg ritual.
No. I got the impression that he was just trying to be cute. He's like, oh, here's this special Borg ritual. But then it's just like, oh, look, in this ventilation return shaft, we can, slide down and it's fun, stress relief, and then we'll make out.
Yeah. And so this is where I think it's stronger evidence supports that they are not, like, he is not completely Chatwash or completely loyal to Chatwash. Right. Because here he could have said one of 100 things. But the thing that he goes for is trying to make her realize that her memories are not real, because she thinks, or she believes she was here when that ship showed up and dropped her here. But he says, maybe that's not true. And then you can see that she gets a little angsty, a little nervous, a little apprehensive. But
yeah, and he, I mean, and later on, his sister, quote unquote.
For our listeners, Jenn is doing the air quotes with sisters, which I 100% agree with.
She seems to imply that he's a cyberneticist himself. So you got to think that he's got to be fascinated by Soji himself, just from a scientific point of view, let alone a romantic point of view. So you got to think that, I mean, he obviously doesn't want her dead the same way that Daj died, and is it because they need information from her, or is it because he's feeling sympathy towards her? And I don't know. Yeah, but I agree with you. I don't think he's 100% loyal to the Jatvash based on what we've seen.
Well, more on whatever the heck is going on there. But now we get back to what I think is the best part of the episode, where Elnor and Picard finally have a conversation, and Elnor essentially asks him, why did you abandon me? And the quote, Milat Zani tells him, hey, he needs to find a place, he needs some purpose. And Picard sits down with him and says, I need you. I need you to bind your sword to my quest, which is the most Lord of the Rings thing you can say. And he was like, okay, you guys, all right, we get it. Anyway, so here he says, will you? And then Elnor asks him the right question. He asks him, why do you need me? And then he says things like, oh, you're a good swordsman. Clearly you're doing great. Like, you're young, I'm old. Which is, again, it shows how uncomfortable Picard is, really displaying emotions, and how horrible he would be at Absolute Candor. Because what he should have said is, I'm a dying man. I once thought I had a son in you, and I need this time to connect. And all of this is kind of really an excuse for me to get to spend some time with you. Right. And bind. The truth is, he should have said, I want to bind my last days with your life, which is,
I'm gonna cry.
He can't say it because that's Captain Picard, and then but Elnor feels it, and that's why he shows up later. But what did you think of that scene? What do you think about Elnor in general? And just give us some thoughts.
Well, and I mean, and Elnor at first says, you left me, why shouldn't I leave you? And he walks out, and he's got a point there, especially since Picard wasn't completely honest. Like you said, he didn't go into the actual reasons of why he needed Elnor specifically. So you can understand his feelings there, and why he
just
did
so people know, in the previous episode, Rafi does a similar thing. Where she says, I need you to leave me, and then she shows up anyway. I think that's just the Picard factor.
The Picard factor is a great way to put it. It's the Picard factor. And it's true. And Picard messed up, and he's trying to right those wrongs. And I think he obviously, like you said, wants this time with Elnor, thinks of him as a son. Elnor, he can be angry at Picard, but he definitely needs the same thing. He needs that time with Picard as the only father figure he's ever known. And I can't wait to see more of their relationship together. I really like that scene. It was a great scene. I like Elnor so far. But we haven't gotten too much. We've gotten just the warrior, good guy, obedient side of him, which I know there's more than that to him, because none of these other characters are one-dimensional in this show. So I know there's going to be more to him, and I can't wait to find out more.
I would really like it if they finally, in a very poetic way, did the opposite of what Worf did with Klingons, where he's like, Klingons do not like A. Klingons do not like B. Klingons do not like being probed. And I hope Elnor is the opposite, and he says, you know what the Koath Millet really like? Is ice cream. I like ice cream. And I want to get some ice cream right now. Yeah.
Let's do it.
And so from here we go to essentially Picard thinking he's gotten a no, so he needs to go, but he's happy he got the opportunity to reconnect. And then he reaches out to the ship. Rio says, hey, we have 7 minutes. So as he's walking, he walks by the social club, which now has a sign called Romulans Only. And that to me has a lot of historical parallels. As someone who comes from a country that was once part of the British Empire, we are taught in our history books, and I've seen some of these signs in museums. We had signs like these all across the country in which specific buildings would have signs that would say, British only, or members of the Royal Army only. Some of the more demeaning signs would be something like, no dogs or Indians allowed. That was a sign that was there in buildings all across the country, especially buildings like our Parliament building and courts, places where you'd think the British royals would be. Mm-hmm. They'd have signs like no dogs or Indians allowed. You can find similar things in the history textbooks of the Chinese and the Japanese, because they would also have similar things like no dogs and, this particular race allowed, which is terrible. But of course, Picard, it wouldn't be Picard if he didn't go up and do something about it. So he just pulls it down. And he doesn't do it angrily, which is such a Picard way to handle it. Right. If it was Kirk, he would have just kicked it and then it would drop.
Kirk would have tried to rip it in half.
And, speaking of Kirk kicking things, you can find my review of the Kirk Few manual coming up this week on Trek News, where you can read all about how Kirk kicks and punches things. But, Kirk would have, he would have punched or kicked it. But Picard just goes, pulls it, and then he walks into the store and just is the nicest, kindest person to say, hey guys, what's going on? What did you think of that scene? What did you think of the conversation? We'll get to the point where Elnor shows up. But again, it's a bunch of people telling Picard, you failed, and you failed us. And this is the consequences, that this is what we've become, and you have to, nobody's asked, he says right before they fight, the senator says, nobody asked for your pity, just like nobody asked for your help. What did you think of that scene?
Right. And I think it was powerful that they used a former Romulan senator to deliver that message, because it wasn't, there couldn't be someone that we knew. Mm-hmm. We don't know any of these people, but we know, we kind of know what a Romulan senator is, what that means. Mm-hmm. And how different that a life as a Romulan senator is from what we're seeing in this scene. So it's a way to show just how bad it's gotten, that they were able to show that contrast, with that character. And in 7 minutes, Picard gets into a lot of trouble here. He couldn't just stay out of trouble for 7 minutes. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I think obviously that's going to be part of that's not going away. That issue is not going away just because he left that planet, So yeah, and then it becomes an actual sword fight.
Yeah, and what I really liked is Picard lectures him on this later, but Elnor gives the guys a chance. He says, choose to live, right. And then he says, leave him alone. And then they don't, which is when he strikes. And that's such a Kill Bill move where he's like, just goes up and strikes the guy and his head just falls off.
Right.
And I thought it was a pretty cool scene. And then he declares that he has bound himself to, I believe it's Kalam Kai. He says, I
gotta learn all these words.
Apparently favorite alien race, but
I know
the words.
I'm slipping.
And he says, I'm binding myself to Picard. I'm his Kalam Kai now. Right. And you people need to leave him alone, essentially. And then just as they're about to attack, Rios pulls them out from there. What I find, again, this is a tiny nitpick, but no, that was a good sword fight, right? I enjoyed it. For you.
No, I thought so. The only thing that was weird to me is that was an odd shade of green. That wasn't how I pictured Romulan blood. Romulan blood in my mind is more of like a Kelly green than like that neon slime green.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. This is a tiny nitpick, but how did Rios know to get 2 people off of there?
Yeah, I wondered about that too. I just like, okay.
It's a show.
Yeah, it's a show. Maybe Picard said, like, I'll be coming back with someone. Because I think they knew that he was going there. Oh, they did know, because Raffi says that when they're in the study, like, right. He's going there to get a hired gun. Mm-hmm. So maybe he was expecting to beam up 2 people. I don't know.
Yeah, I found that pretty interesting.
Yeah.
But it's a tiny nitpick.
Yeah. No, I thought the same thing.
Somebody from Star Trek is listening. Hey, explain it to us, guys. Tell us how that happened. We would love to know.
I always think about, like, in Galaxy Quest, they have them on the transporter, they have the monitor where they can see what's going on the planet. Yeah. They don't have that in the real Star Trek.
That is true. They do not.
Right. But that would be helpful, because then you'd be like, oh, look, I see what's going on. There's this big sword fight that's going to turn into a phaser fight. Let's get these 2 guys out.
So a lot of things happen here at the end as we get closer to the end. But so Elnor and Picard they get aboard the La Sirena, and then Picard gives him a tiny lecture about, hey, you can't keep killing people. You have to listen to me. And then they do the namaste, the Romulan namaste, which is I feel like it's, so in my culture, we call it like the lotus namaste. It's like, your hand opens into like a little lotus. But so he does the namaste, and then it's essentially they become part of each other's quests, which I thought was really cool. And then, of course, it wouldn't be Raffi if she didn't make a sarcastic comment. Oh, great. It's a guy with a stick. Because the truth is, she has not seen that that was pretty cool, is she has not seen that there's a sword inside it. She thinks it's just a stick, which, well done. But then the dogfight breaks out because the Romulan bird of prey that showed up earlier starts shooting at them. And Jen, this is your favorite scene, so I'm just going to let you take it away for 15 minutes. But there's a really cool dogfight, and then you find out that there's like a weapon. Would it be called like a weapons hologram or like a battle hologram?
Yeah, I think it was like a tactical hologram, maybe.
Yeah, like a tactical hologram. And I'm glad this time finally there's at least one person who speaks Spanish.
Yes, I like that. I like how Rios started speaking Spanish and Emmett speaks Spanish too. That was nice.
And so the dogfight breaks out, and just as they think they're about to lose everything to the Tal Shiar bird of prey, a ship shows up out of nowhere, saves the La Sirena from being shot down by chopping off a wing of one of the birds of prey, but not before the bird of prey can get a final shot. And just as the bird of prey is about to disintegrate, Picard and crew command that whoever's on that ship be brought over to the La Sirena, and then you find out it's 7 of 9.
7 of 9.
All right, dude, go nuts, Jen. How cool was the scene?
Oh, okay. So I was a little bummed that I got spoiled by the credits, because the opening credits listed Jerry Ryan as a guest star in this episode. So I was a little kind of bummed about that, because I kind of wanted to be surprised about when she actually shows up. So it wasn't. So kind of, it's like, oh, so I know this is going to be 7 in the ship, so that took away from it a little bit, but who cares? Who cares? Because it was just so exciting to see her again. And she looks amazing. And she did her little 7, like head movement, before she says her line and collapses. And I just felt this tingling, in my back of excitement, when I saw her again, and so wonderful. And I can't wait for next week to hear more about her story and how she ended up where she is. And just hearing Picard say 7 of 9 was just like a tingly moment too.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time 7 of 9 and Picard have met in
That's my
screen
understanding.
canon, right?
Oh yeah, definitely on screen canon. This is the first time they met. I was kind of under the impression this was the first time they met all together. But
clearly they
I don't remember
met
where I got
before.
that from.
I wonder
I don't know.
what it is.
I don't know if they've met before.
Yeah, I've not read
Because-
our last Best Hope yet, which is the
Yeah,
Picard
no,
tie novel. So I don't know if they
yeah.
meet there. But I'm not. Again, I know the Hive comic in which they work together.
Yeah.
And
Oh, okay.
that's the one I know, but that's not like really
Yeah.
canon.
Right.
So
Right.
there are places where they've met in the past, but it was.
We'll find out next
I was
week.
so happy. Okay. I have so many things to say.
Yes, go
7
for
or
it.
9. She looks amazing.
She looks so good. So good.
Don't look, universe, don't tell me there isn't a Borg potion that Jonathan Delarco and Jerry Ryan are not
for
drinking
sure.
because it's something
sure.
in their skin cells.
Yes.
Clearly, they found it and they're not sharing it with the rest of the world.
Right.
But that's okay. I'm more than happy
Yeah,
to
those
just have them in
two.
my life.
Yeah, those
But
two have not aged a day.
It's insane that lady was on a show in the 90s. There is
Yeah.
no way. And she
I
looks
know.
exact. You can put
know, she
them.
looks so
I did
good.
it. I took like a screen grab from both of their times here and there. And
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know how. The only thing that's changed is like it's a different camera. But it's the
Yeah.
exact same person who looks exactly the same. I don't know how Jerry Ryan does it. That is crazy. But was so happy
I'm
to see
digging
that.
her look, her clothes, her regular clothes that she's wearing. Which is great to see. The long hair, she doesn't have her hair up, She looks so good.
So, do you have any theories about why she might be there?
I have no idea. I haven't thought about it. I don't want to spoil anything about that. I just
Okay, all right. We leave that.
So if
part
you
out.
know anything, don't tell me.
Sure,
But,
no, I won't.
from the comics or anything.
Yes,
but
I won't.
but yeah, no, I'm just really interested to see how she's grown. 7 of 9 is the character that I most strongly identify with out of all the characters in Trek. She, especially, I mean, when I was in high school when Voyager came out, and so she was like.
Did you just throw Dax under the bus?
If I have, okay, my personality is basically Jadzia, 7 of 9, and Riker rolled into one. Those are my top 3 that I identify with in all of Trek.
It's a weird threesome, Jen.
I know. I'm a weird person. You know this about me. You know this from... But 7 in particular, when I was in high school, her character trying to find herself and trying to God, through all this stuff that happens to her, trying to stay true, find out who she is and stay true to that at the same time. And I love her and how she was in Voyager. And I can't wait to see how 20 years of growth has changed her. And I'm wondering if she grew in the same way I did, or, like if I'll still identify with her character, or if she'll be totally different. And I don't care. Whatever we get. And I just can't wait to find out. I love her so much.
Well, in the interest of our guest host, I will not talk about any of the theories or connections, but I would love to hear your theories. Let us know on @PoliTreks or tweet at either of us. We would love to hear why and how you think she ended up there. That's one of the
if you want to talk about it, you can.
No. Okay. That's one of the fun things I think about the weekly format is that now we have a week, or essentially we're recording this on Sunday. So we have 4 days before we actually find out any of that, which is 4 days of fun theorizing and figuring things out. And in my house, it's like I'm an FBI officer and I have a whole wall of thread and snapshots.
Yes, you are that gif of Charlie from Always Sunny.
Yes, that's me. It's the fact that I could put this in notes and talk to another human being and not burst into a million atoms is amazing. And anyway, so outside of that, any other thoughts you wanted to talk about in the episode about just that we might have missed, I might have missed?
Boy, I mean, we covered a lot, I think.
That's how we like it here on PoliTreks.
Yeah,
the longer the episode, the better.
Who are you feeling? Who's your favorite new character so far?
Number one, bro. Come on.
Okay. How about two-legged character? Not four-legged.
Right. Well, number one, I'm sure if I give the right treat, number one can stand on two legs.
True.
That's a difficult question. Well, the one that has made the biggest impact for me is F8.
Oh,
because F8 is somebody there are so many layers of racism and discrimination that I can relate to. I don't agree with what he did. I still think that's terrible. That's the one that made the biggest impact on me. But, if I have to pick, how can he...
Well, I don't think that was his decision. Obviously, somebody...
Yeah, you could see whether it's the activated.
Whether it's the Jat Vash or someone else, that was somebody activating the Maddox androids. So
but I'm all about... again, this is a cop-out answer, but Picard. I don't know how you cannot say Picard.
That's a great answer. That's not a cop-out answer.
What about you?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously Picard. He's amazing. I love Laris, of course. I want to see more of her. I want to short treks about her. But the biggest surprise to me has been Captain Rios. I thought that I was not going to like him based on the previews. I thought he was just going to be like the generic Han Solo type character, which is kind of boring, but he's got so many layers to him, and I just want to know his history, and I find him fascinating. I find his holograms fascinating. I love the whole deal. And it's just funny because none of the characters are one-dimensional. Not even Girardi. Like, we're talking about, I mean, she's just basically this goody two-shoe scientist, fish out of water type, but she might not be, there's still enough there. They're giving us enough, to have us question her motives and question, what her story is. And I just, wow, they're really, really hitting this out of the park, I think, the characterizations of these people. Got Raffi's great. They're all great. Man, we're lucky.
This is the new age of Trek. I'm so happy to have lived this long to experience this, because
you sound like an old man. I'm glad I made it to Star Trek Picard.
Yes, I'm like Picard. I have been told I need to go to space to find my best android friend's daughter, because something terrible might be going on. But I'm glad I'm catching a break to watch this show. No,
who do you identify with out of Trek characters?
Oh,
I gave you mine. Yeah.
Bashir. Because brown people.
Him.
My brown people.
He's my biggest Star Trek crush. Is Julian Bashir,
because it's I horribly fail with women. I'm completely nerdy.
He's not though. He's maybe season 1 Bashir, but just need a little seasoning, and
I've not thought about that much. Well, a lot of the DS, to be honest, I relate a lot to Quark.
Oh, interesting. Tell me about that.
If I had to pick, Quark would be my favorite character in Star Trek.
Quark's
because
amazing. Yeah.
I have similar philosophies to Quark. I kind of don't agree with, because the way my life has turned out, I don't entirely think Starfleet is great and Starfleet is right motto is correct. But I also think that we are mostly selfish people, and that's okay. Like, that's what life is like. Right. And but I also think that there are times when Quark shows up. There are so many episodes of DS9 where Quark is supposed to be this Ferengi, right, and he's supposed to be part of this culture, and he has to agree with it. But over and over and over, he makes decisions that are antithetical to his culture. And as a Hindu man living in the United States, having to live with the burden of one culture and then learning and trying to find a balance between these two cultures. He's just I feel like him, I am being pulled on either sides by two different cultures in different ways. And I have to find this fine balance of what works for me. And to him, it works that having a space bar and doing my dark deals on the side, this lovable rogue. But then, when it matters, you can always count on him being loyal to the people on the station. And so that's why I think I relate to Quark the most. I don't know if
Interesting answer. Yeah. And he does. I mean, he does, like he stays on the station during the Dominion occupation, and he basically spies for the good guys. And and the one thing I always found that I really liked about Quark was his taste in women. I know that sounds strange, but think about every single love interest that Quark had during the show was a really, really strong, smart, independent woman. You know, and which you wouldn't normally associate with Ferengi males based on their, their assumptions about females chewing their food and eating and not wearing clothes.
Yeah, and again, it's a really different. It's not as one would expect from a Ferengi.
Right.
It's like another thing that he looks at from his culture, and he's like, I don't accept this. I want a different thing for myself. But yeah, that's the one I relate to the most. But anyway. Well, that was that was an interesting deviation. Thank you for asking me those questions. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for putting up with my crazy fan theories and giving us your delightful thoughts.
Thank you.
I feel like I need to balance out the insanity on every one of these episodes by having a normal person who can talk.
Well, you picked the wrong person.
Well, I'm sure our listeners will tell us about that. But hey, where can people find you, Jenn? I know we talked about it a little bit, but where can people find you if they want to share their thoughts on what you thought? Hey, if you didn't like the episode or our thoughts, just be respectful, guys. That's all I ask for. Just be respectful to Jenn. Let's be nice. We wanted to come back in the future. But tell people
I am all about absolute candor. That's fine. If you want to tell me what I did wrong, let me know. I'll take it as feedback to improve myself. That really does not bother me. But yeah, good or bad comments are welcome.
Well, my first comment is you should learn the names of all the things in your favorite
I have
alien race.
I have to brush up on all this new canon. That is true. But yeah, so please, you can find me on Twitter at @EdaQuarks. That's where I am. DM me. We'll talk.
And also listen to Snap Trek, which is a fun, delightful podcast.
Thank you.
Now, people can find me on @gutter_hero. That's GUTTER_HERO. You can also find our co-host. You can interact with either of us, my co-host, Barry DeFord. You can talk to us on @PoliTreks. That's POLITREKS. You can find us on Facebook. I have shared the Facebook things, but I cannot watch for them 100%. So I'm sure if you type PoliTreks, you'll find something. And that's how you get in touch with us. You can also get in touch with us on @TrekGeeks. Those crazy people will send your hate/love mail to us, however it comes in. They're also all about absolute candor. And now, before we get out of here, I do have, when I say we, I mean me and Jenn. I would like to thank Aly Martinez, who is editing this episode. And
good luck. Thank you, Aly.
Yeah, and after listening to this, Aly always has the best, most unique, the coolest perspectives. So here now, you will listen to a snippet or just a section of the show that will cover Aly's thoughts. So I'm calling this the research officer's log from the Daystum Institute, because Aly lives in Okinawa. And it's the perfect time because we have the Daystum Institute in the show. So now, before you sign off, make sure you listen to Aly's wonderful thoughts and listen to all that she has to say. I promise it'll be smarter and funnier and nicer than anything I've said so far. So make sure you listen to Aly's thoughts. Now, here is Aly Martinez with the research officer's log.
Thanks so much to Shashank and Jenn for that wonderful introduction. I had such a fun time editing this episode, and I'll give you just a few of my thoughts about the episode because the both of them summed it up so well in this hour and a half they could talk all day on it. I feel like all of us could talk all day about a lot of this. So I'll just give you just a few of my thoughts. So first of all, I agree with both of them that this episode was wonderful. I loved that we got more of that character exposition. We got to see new characters and we got to see a little bit deeper into Picard. I mean, Picard's a character that we already know so much about and that we've seen so much across Star Trek. And yet we still are getting these stories in Picard where we take that another step further Because yes, it has been 20 years since Nemesis, but Picard is such a layered individual. And now we're getting to see those layers come out with these different characters like Musiker and Elnor. And I just love the fact that we're getting to see a character like Elnor, that we would see someone like that in Star Trek. Someone that seems to be so central to Picard's story and yet can still be a new character, and that's okay. Because there are things left unseen with Picard. There's things that we still have to figure out. And that's what this show is pushing us towards. Now that we've gotten through the first 3 episodes that really set up that character arc, now we can move into something where the storytelling is really going to start going. Or I've been hearing people say Picard is great, but it's really been a slow burn lately, or those first 3 episodes. But I'm hoping with these next episodes that that's going to change. And also, okay, so 7 of 9, guys. This is amazing. And honestly, it's funny because I was never a huge Voyager person until, I don't know, about a year ago. So I used to watch it when I was younger. And I don't know if it was just because I couldn't quite comprehend the characters well enough. But when I was younger and I would watch it with my parents, it wasn't my favorite Trek. It wasn't my least favorite, but it wasn't my favorite. But then when I went back and watched it, I did another chronological rewatch of Star Trek. And watching it recently, I really found that I connected with the characters more. And of course, connected with 7 of 9. So to be able to see her just for that little snapshot of a moment was super meaningful. Just like Jen said, I got those goosebumps. And there's so many elements of this episode that I could go over, but I'm not going to bore you guys with another 20 minutes of me talking. So if you want to talk more with me about it, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. You can find me at @TTrekkie. I can also be found at that handle on Facebook and as well on Instagram. And I also have a website that's currently under construction. That's ttrekkie.wordpress.com. And also, I'll do a one last plug on here. Hopefully Shashank doesn't get mad. Well, how could he get mad? This is a plug about him and I. So we're working on a podcast right now with the Trek Geeks Network called Who is Trek? It's coming soon. We are super excited about it. We've been putting all of our thoughts, our brain power, our hearts into this because it's not just an easy venture. We want to make it wonderful. And we've had this, I guess, brainchild for quite a while. So we're excited to bring it to you. Who is Trek? You can find it on Twitter at Who is Trek. It's on the Trek Geeks Podcast Network, and it's coming soon. So keep your ears and your eyes and any other senses peeled for Who is Trek. So thank you guys so much for listening to this. As always, if you want to go back and give a listen to any other PoliTreks episodes, you can find it on the Trek Geeks website. You can also find it where you can find most of your podcasts or where you are currently listening to this podcast. And also check out all the other podcasts on the Trek Geeks Network. Incredible things like Trek Rewind, and also 5-Year Mission podcast, Trek Geeks Game Night, Discovering Trek, the flagship Trek Geeks podcast, which was the very first podcast, the very first one I ever listened to. So give it all a listen. And as always, Shashank signs off with live long and prosper and on to Star Society.